The radar contact appears at the edge of the screen, barely a flicker, a ghost. The entire air defense network is active. Every sensor array within 100 miles is scanning, sweeping, searching. Long-range surface-to-air defense systems are on standby. Interceptor aircraft are airborne. A fully integrated, layered defensive architecture years in the making, designed to detect and respond to any intrusion, is looking for something it cannot find, because what's coming doesn't announce itself. It doesn't appear on screens. It doesn't trigger alarms. It moves through the electromagnetic spectrum like smoke through a keyhole. Somewhere above the clouds, at an altitude most aircraft cannot sustain, and at a speed most cannot maintain, something is watching. Something is waiting, and by the time anyone in that network realizes it was ever there, the mission will already be complete. This is not a concept under development. This is not classified speculation. This is an aircraft that has been operational for 2 decades, and the world still has nothing that can genuinely match it. This is the story of the F-22 Raptor, what it is, why it was built, and why, after everything that has changed in military aviation, it remains irreplaceable. The story begins not with the aircraft itself, but with a problem. By the late 1970s and into the 1980s, American military planners were looking at a map of Europe and running calculations they did not like. The Soviet Union had invested heavily in its air defense infrastructure, not just interceptor aircraft, though there were many, but an entire layered system: ground-based radars, long-range surface-to-air defense batteries, short-range point defense systems, communication networks connecting everything. The Soviet Union had built something designed specifically to deny the United States air superiority over any future contested region. And air superiority is not an optional luxury. It is the foundational condition that makes everything else possible. Without it, ground forces are exposed. Logistics become dangerously complicated. Precision operations in contested territory become significantly more costly. The entire American approach to modern operations, fast, precise, coordinated, depends on controlling the airspace above the engagement zone. The aircraft America had at the time were capable. The F-15 Eagle was the finest air superiority platform of its generation, but it had real limits. Against advanced surface-to-air systems, even the best pilots in the best aircraft were operating at high risk every time they entered heavily defended airspace. Something had to change. The Air Force began asking a fundamentally different question. Not, how do we build a better aircraft? But, how do we build an aircraft that changes the rules entirely? The answer was a program called the Advanced Tactical Fighter, and the specifications that emerged from it were extraordinary in their ambition. Supercruise the ability to fly faster than the speed of sound without the heavy fuel consumption of afterburners. Not a momentary sprint, but a sustained supersonic cruising speed that would compress engagement timelines and extend operational range in ways no existing aircraft could match. Low observability, what many refer to as stealth, not the type built into the B-2 bomber, which was designed for slow high-altitude strategic missions, but low observability integrated into an air superiority platform, an aircraft that could maneuver and operate while remaining nearly undetectable to radar systems. Supermaneuverability thrust vectoring nozzles that could redirect engine exhaust and reorient the aircraft at angles that conventional aerodynamics could not achieve. In close engagements, fractions of a second matter. The ability to point sensors and systems at a target ahead of the adversary defines the outcome. And finally, sensor fusion, the ability to pull data from multiple onboard systems simultaneously and present the pilot with a single coherent real-time picture of everything in the surrounding airspace, without requiring him to manually interpret separate displays or piece together fragmented information under pressure. Lockheed's design won the competition. The first flight came in '97. When the aircraft formally entered service in 2005, it was unlike anything that had ever joined an Air Force inventory anywhere in the world. Picture this scenario. 2 advanced adversary aircraft are patrolling a contested air corridor. They are equipped with modern radar systems, modern long-range air-to-air munitions, and well-trained crews. Their ground control is feeding them real-time tracking data. They are actively searching for any intrusion into their designated airspace. 40 miles away, well beyond visual range and outside the effective detection range of their radar systems, the Raptor has already built a complete tactical picture of both aircraft. Its sensors have established a full situational assessment. The pilot knows exactly where both aircraft are, their speed, and their heading. The pilot also knows which one presents the more urgent tactical concern. The aircraft's low observable design, combined with passive sensor capabilities, means it can operate without revealing itself. It does not need to broadcast its own radar emissions to track the threat. The first air-to-air interceptor leaves the internal weapons bay housed inside the fuselage, rather than on external pylons, so the aircraft's radar signature remains uncompromised. Clean departure, already tracking. The adversary pilots receive no indication of engagement until their radar warning systems activate. By then, the geometry of the intercept is already determined. The second engagement is underway before the first crew has processed what is happening. From the adversary perspective, the exchange is nearly inexplicable. No radar track established, no visual contact made, incoming munitions from an unknown bearing. This is not merely a tactical setback, it is a profound psychological one. The Raptor does not just neutralize aircraft, it neutralizes certainty. And in modern air operations, certainty is the most valuable resource in the sky. What the Raptor changed was not any single technical specification. It was the foundational math of air operations planning. Before this aircraft existed, any military planner thinking about contested airspace had to work with exchange rate calculations and expected attrition ratios. How many of your own platforms are lost in exchange for how many of the adversaries was an accepted variable. Even the finest fighters of the previous generation operated in an environment where losses were an accepted variable in the equation. The Raptor fundamentally disrupted that calculation. Its performance in large force exercises produced exchange ratios that were difficult to process, multi-to-1 in some cases. But the impact extends far beyond exercise statistics. The Raptor's presence changes what adversaries are willing to attempt. An air defense planner who knows this aircraft might be operating in a region cannot confidently commit assets. Air defense radar systems that activate to track targets become detectable to radar homing systems. Interceptors that are scrambled to engage may simply not return. The Raptor imposes caution even when it is not present, because no one on the opposing side can ever confirm it is not there. This is deterrence operating at the tactical level. The aircraft's reputation, built over decades of classified operational deployments that the public will never fully know, is itself a strategic instrument. The Raptor also transformed doctrine around establishing air superiority. Before this generation of aircraft, air campaigns required extensive suppression of adversary air defenses. Those were dedicated operations to degrade radar networks and surface-to-air systems before other aircraft could safely operate. The Raptor reduced that requirement because it could function in environments where previous aircraft could not safely operate. It shortened planning timelines and reduced the exposure of supporting platforms. It allowed decision-makers to compress the interval between the decision to act and the execution of that action. That compression carries significant operational consequences. Less time for an adversary to reposition assets, less warning, less opportunity to adapt before the situation resolves. China and Russia both observed this carefully and drew their own conclusions. The Soviet Union's collapse did not end Russian investment in advanced aviation technology. It delayed it. When Russian defense spending recovered during the 2000s, one of the first priorities was a fifth-generation aircraft of its own. That program eventually produced the Su-57. China's effort, more ambitious in overall scale, produced the J-20. Both programs were at least in part a direct response to what America had fielded. Russia and China, they assessed what the United States had built and concluded they could not remain strategically competitive while relying solely on fourth-generation platforms. They committed significant national resources to developing low, observable designs, advanced radar systems, and long-range air-to-air systems specifically intended to address low observable threats. This is the defining consequence of a genuinely dominant platform. It does not end strategic competition, it accelerates it. And it does so on terms that favor the side that moved first and invested most deeply. The Raptor also reshaped how American allies and potential adversaries approach their own procurement decisions. It reshaped their air defense investments and their strategic assessments of what a high-end conflict with the United States would look like in the air. Any serious analysis of American air power begins with acknowledging this aircraft. That acknowledgement shapes decisions about alliances and about basing. It shapes decisions about whether to challenge American presence in a given region at all. The F-22 program ended earlier than many analysts and Air Force leaders believed was wise. Production stopped at 187 aircraft, a fraction of the original planned procurement. Budget pressures, shifting strategic priorities, and the emergence of the F-35 all contributed to that decision. By many assessments within the defense community, it was a consequential miscalculation. The aircraft cannot be exported because the technology involved is too advanced and too sensitive. So, the United States carries this unique capability alone in limited numbers. Adversaries have spent 2 decades studying it and developing systems intended to counter it. Upgrades have continued throughout the fleet's service life. The aircraft has received new electronic warfare capabilities, updated software, improved communications, and better sensors. The platform in service today is meaningfully more capable than the one that achieved initial operational status in 2005. But it remains the same fundamental airframe with the same production line now shut down. There is no direct replacement currently on the immediate horizon. The Next Generation Air Dominance program is in development, but will not reach operational status for years. In the interim, the Raptor fleet carries a strategic burden it was not sized to carry alone. Somewhere tonight above a corridor of sky that does not appear on public tracking systems, an aircraft is in motion. No radar return worth targeting, and no detectable signature. A pilot sits in a cockpit that synthesizes the entire surrounding electromagnetic environment into a single operational picture, seeing everything but detected by nothing. Adversaries have invested significant national resources attempting to solve this problem. They have developed new sensor technologies, new interception systems, and new doctrinal frameworks. They have conducted extensive exercises and assessments, and they understand analytically what they are dealing with. But understanding a problem and actually solving it are 2 entirely different things. For 2 decades, the Raptor has held a position in military aviation that no other aircraft has reached, not because of what it has done in direct open conflict, but because of what it forces the other side to account for every single day. Every air campaign assessment, every contested airspace plan, and every decision about whether to challenge American presence has to include this aircraft as a factor. That is what genuine strategic dominance actually looks like. Not a platform that prevails in every scenario, but a platform that changes whether the scenario is attempted at all. The silent hunter is still out there, and it remains the one capability in the sky that no one has yet figured out how to replace.